Hello, and welcome to Self-Care is Sexy. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host. We're a weekly podcast that's here to generate and share self-care ideas with each other. Last week, I brought you an episode about how to advocate for your own self-care. And in that episode, we encouraged you to take time to stand up for yourself and really make your self-care the priority. If you missed that show or any of our past episodes, you can always check us out on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, PodNation, our website, www.selfcareissexy.com, and anywhere else you get your podcasts from. Want to give you a quick preview of what to expect from today's show. Today's show, we're going to be talking about how to cultivate a self-care state of mind. We're going to get into what that is, some examples on how you can start cultivating that mindset, and some other fun tricks and tips for you this week. But first, gotta pay the bills. We'll be right back. All right, thank you so much. Today, I really want to talk about how to cultivate a self-care state of mind. And the reason I want to talk about this with you friends today is because I think that with all of the practical application that I've been giving you lately with, how to advocate for your self-care, how to ask for what you want, giving yourself permission to put yourself first, these kinds of things, I think it's really important to start to frame what self-care does for you and what it's supposed to feel like and how it's supposed to be when you start making self-care the priority. And the differences between, some of the more negative ways of being, like as a people pleaser or putting everyone before you, and the differences between that and what it's like on the other side when you're making self-care the priority, when you're putting yourself first, when you're deciding that you're going to think about what's best for you and put that oxygen mask on yourself before you start spreading yourself around to others. One of the things I want to start off with today is to remind you that right now, you're doing it correctly. You're doing self-care, even if you don't feel the direct benefits, the direct effects of that self-care. Because listening to positive encouragement, like this podcast, is an act of self-care. And whether you realize it or not, it's helping you. It's helping to give you that permission that you need to do more for yourself. And really the most important thing I want to talk about today is that it's your job to learn how to love yourself and how to take care of yourself. I think a lot of folks get wrapped up in the fact that self-care is about doing things for themselves, but they don't understand that, yes, it's about doing things for yourself, but it's about managing yourself so that nobody else is burdened with that. And we're going to talk about this today, a little bit about the expecting the happiness to come from someone else. So I really want you to think about, as we're going through these tips and tricks today and we're going through the episode, I really want you to remember that it's your primary job to learn how to love yourself. It is your primary responsibility to understand what it is you need for self-care. And then in that, you've got to learn to implement these ideas and these tricks in order to get that self-care. Because the starting point, the starting spot of all of self-care is realizing and accepting and acknowledging that you're worth it, that you're worth the energy and the effort of that self-care. We've got tons of episodes in the archives that you can dig up to help you if that's where you're at. But I really want you to start seeing how much you actually do love yourself and start looking for the evidence of how you treat yourself now and how you think about yourself now as compared to that shitty self-loathing that you used to be engaged in all the damn time. I want you to start really practicing looking for ways that you do get self-care, even if it's the smallest thing, like clipping your toenails or saying no to an obligation that you're just not comfortable with. From the little to the big, I want you to start recognizing all of the times that you've actually made that effort to love yourself more, to do that self-care, to treat yourself better. Because as you really start to look for evidence of when you are actually loving yourself and changing that shitty relationship with yourself, you're going to start wanting to see more and more and more. It's just like when you buy a car and you start seeing that car everywhere you go. It's the same concept. I want you to start looking for it so that you'll start seeing it. And the more you start seeing it, the more you're going to remember this is important. This is what I'm really passionate about, is helping everyone understand how much we need to give ourselves that love, that compassion, that kindness, that gentle heart that we so often give to other people. And you know what? It's a really subtle thing. It's just like one day you kind of wake up and you get it and you understand, okay, I don't think like that anymore. I choose to take care of me. I'm a kind of person that puts myself first. I make sure I'm tending to my needs. And then I only serve others when it feels good and I want to. Not because I'm afraid they won't love me or they won't like me anymore. It's no longer from a place of, I gotta prove I'm a good person. When you make self-care the priority, when you take the actions and the efforts to really repair your relationship with yourself, you're going to start to see that in so many different aspects of your life. You know, and it's a subtle shift, but I promise you, there's such a huge freedom in that shift. It might feel like it's a lot of work to think about self-care and to, you know, try to say nice things about yourself and try to implement some of these ideas. But the truth is, and I really want you to hear this, friends, it is so much harder on you to hold that negative mindset and to beat yourself up and to be a chronic people pleaser and a caregiver to everyone else, leaving you last on your list. That is harder. That is more work. And it's more painful to your soul. And I really want to set you free. I want you to realize there is another side to that. And it's not rocket science how you get there. But it's really important to remember that, you know what? People don't have to like you. And the reason that you might be trying so hard for other people to like you is because you don't like you. And you think, you know, if I get enough people to like me, then maybe, just maybe, I'll start believing in myself. I'll start liking me. Well, newsflash, friends, that ain't gonna work. That's not how this works. You can do everything in your power to try and get others to like you or to be in their good favor or to give them yourself in hopes that they will make you feel better about yourself until you do. But that is such an unsustainable way to try and make yourself feel better. And we all know that when we try to make ourselves feel better through negative ways, through overeating or over drinking or, sex or just different external factors to try and make ourselves feel better, those things are never sustainable. And you'll eventually end up back in that really dark place where you hate yourself and you're talking shit about yourself and you punish yourself for every mistake. And if you really want to get out of that mentality and you want to free yourself from that, I promise you, it's self-care. Self-care will get you out of that prison that you're creating. And like I said before, you cannot expect to get out of this prison of self-loathing. You can't expect anyone else to get you out of there. You cannot expect your happiness to come from someone else. Look, it is not your partner's job to make you feel good about yourself all the time. It's not your mom or your dad or your friend's job to convince you that you're not a piece of shit. And really, because when you hand that responsibility over to somebody else, even just in your mind, like not even if you're, outwardly doing it, you're robbing yourself of the power to heal yourself. And if they have a bad day or something like that, or they don't have the kind words that you're used to, or they get burned out from trying to pump you up all the damn time, then you're left without the happiness that you want. And that's just fucking selfish, okay? And friends, I want to share with you, I've done that. I've burnt out perfectly good people from needing their constant validation all the time. And that's what we're learning to do different when we're learning how to cultivate this self-care state of mind. We're really learning through self-care how to be responsible for our own happiness when we're not feeling good, how to change our thoughts when they default to shitty. So today, I want to help us get there. I want to help us understand how we cultivate a self-care state of mind. How do we get to that place where taking care of ourselves is our default mode, instead of where I think everyone else has been for a very long time, which is go, 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 do, produce, hold it all together, be perfect, deal with all the stresses around us, and then maybe, if you're good enough, you'll get a little time for yourself in the end. And I want us to get to the other side, which is when you make self-care the priority and you're taking care of yourself, then helping other people and prioritizing what it is you want to put your energy into, life feels like you're more in control. It feels like you're in charge. If you've got a good book you've been meaning to read for years and you never seem to find time, well, now we're going to start talking about how you make that time. How do you squeeze the time out of your day to do that? Well, you're given the same 24 hours as everybody else. And if reading that book is a priority to you and you want to do that for your well-being, it's time that you start making it that priority and you start putting it on the number 1 slot of your to-do list than the number 101 when I get a chance. And even though it's foreign at first and it seems hard, it seems like it's work, again, it's more work to keep putting it off and telling yourself, maybe someday I'll read that book, or maybe someday I'll get that pedicure that I want, or maybe someday I'll take that trip away by myself, or maybe someday I'll do food prep that's just for me. If you keep putting it off and you keep instead doing things for other people so that they'll like you or so that you'll feel better about yourself, you're going to chase your tail for infinity. And we want to get you to a different place where you're in charge, you're in control, you're managing yourself. And that's what self-care can do for you. So how do we get there? How do we cultivate that state of mind? So that's like our default. Number 1, you want to see the good in yourself, and you want to see it in everything, in the mirror. You want to look for it. Our eyes, especially if you're dealing with dysmorphia, will go to the worst part of our bodies. We'll add 10 pounds with our eyeballs just from our mind thinking, is my pudge there? Yep, there it is. You want to look for good. You want to see that good in yourself and examples of you being good to yourself. So when I started the top of the show, I said, let's start looking for examples of what you're already doing for self-care. What are you doing right now that is just for you, that makes you feel good, that you like doing, that when you're doing it, the day flies by and you forget? For me, podcasting is a big part of that. Writing is a big part of that. A lot of my self-care includes being alone, which as a totally positive, outwardly extroverted person is kind of counterintuitive. But you have to start identifying what those things are. And then you have to really start saying, I deserve it. Not because you did anything to deserve it, but just because you do. So it's not like, okay, today